Hi everyone, we might get started. I think we've waited long enough for the stragglers. My name's Amanda Abel and I'm Deputy Dean for Learning and Teaching in the Faculty of Sciences, and I also oversee the Faculty Honours Committee. So thanks for joining us today. We're going to be having a chat about honours in science and finding out what it's all about. Who we've got online, other than the students who are interested in finding out about honours, are also some of our honours coordinators, and also Nicole Foster, who's going to be telling us a little bit about her experience in honours later as well. So obviously you will also find all of the information about honours at the website that's on the slide here, sciences.adelaide.edu.au study honours. But we are also recording this session, and obviously we'd be happy to take any questions at the end of the session as well. So what we're going to do today is we're going to talk through what honours is, why do honours, and then we'll put you out into some breakout rooms with the honours coordinators in the disciplines of your interest, and then we'll come back and tidy up and talk about some of the information around how do you actually apply for honours at the end of the actual session as well.
Can I just ask what the timeline is for the whole meeting?
So the event concludes at 3:30 p.m, Andrew.
Thank you.
So, okay, honours. Why do we want to study honours? Well, honours is an extra year at the end of what has already been hopefully a great learning experience in your bachelor degree. What it allows you to do is to find out about a particular area of interest in a lot more detail. So you're going to sort of delve right down into the depths of an area, usually in research or also in a professional sense. So it allows you to develop your research skills, and I would actually say to develop your independence as a researcher, but independence also in the workforce. So it allows you to gain a competitive advantage in readiness for your employment and your career, or alternatively, it could set yourself up for a higher degree study, so PhD, for example. Now, we've actually asked our honours students in the past about why they've studied honours in the past, and what we find is that about 50% of them said that they wanted to do it to make sure that they were definitely ready to enter the workforce. So it's a big motivator for honours students usually, is just to make sure that you're ready for finding a job and your career in the future. About 30% usually say that it's because they want to be able to head off into research and do a PhD. So it's not just about doing a PhD. Yes, it'll get you towards that PhD goal, but it's also about making yourself more competitive for employment. So when we ask those honours students about what they want to do, what they've kind of indicated is that, you know, it's about those research and professional skills, and this is from the surveys that we ask our students to do, to broaden their employment options. They wanted to learn and help me be more employable, take ownership of a project. That speaks to that independence that I mentioned before. Becoming more independent, being independent, but still having a strong support from my supervisors. That strong support from the supervisors is actually really important, because your supervisors during honours act as a mentor and help guide you during the process. So you're not thrown in the deep end totally, you're actually helped along the way by a supervisor who is usually an expert in that particular field that you're doing your honours in. We've got workplace, also networking opportunities, theoretical knowledge. There's that word independence again, and then also just knowing how the research world works. So there's a lot of different reasons why students have done honours and what they thought was the best part of honours. And I think as someone who's been an honours supervisor for many years, it is certainly very rewarding to see how students evolve over the year from basically being very dependent into becoming an independent expert in a particular area. So in terms of employability, you know, it's all about those active learning, critical thinking, complex problem solving, and interpersonal skills. Now, all of these you will have been learning in your bachelor degree, but an extra year allows you just to take them that one step further and make sure that you've definitely nailed it for when you want to go out into the workforce. In our honours program, we actually have two pathways. We have one which is around disciplinary research and another one which is around professional skills. The disciplinary research one is obviously going to enable you to spend time in a lab or a field-based project, for example, with an expert in that particular discipline. When we look at research honours, you've normally got a research project, which is between 12 and 18 units, and disciplinary coursework, which is between 6 and 12 units, remembering that 24 units is our full year of study. So it depends which discipline you're in as to what the combination is. But when we think about the disciplinary coursework, this is usually, writing your research proposal, writing literature review, it might be writing grants, it might be doing an essay on a topic of interest to you, or it might actually be coursework at an advanced level, for example, in advanced physics. It just depends which particular discipline you are in as to what the combination is. Our professional honours, on the other hand, is slightly different. The research project we call a professional project, and it's slightly smaller, it's only 9 units. And then there are core coursework, and that coursework is in things like professional communication, professional practice, thinking about emerging issues in science and society. And then there is also elective coursework, things like science communication and introduction to science education. So its focus is a little bit more on science education, science communication, and science policy, for example. So the two pathways are presented there. So you've got the research discipline option or a professional honours option. When we look at our research pathways, there are lots of options. And I'd actually say, in some regards, it's kind of the world is your oyster. There is so many different things that you could do. So in biological sciences, we have evolution and paleobiology, ecology, environmental science, and then we've also got the medical science side of things in terms of biotechnology and molecular or biomedical science. In the physical sciences, you've got chemistry, geology, geophysics, other types of physics and environmental geoscience. And then in agriculture, food and wine, you've got all the different flavours of ag, food and wine. And then we've also got animal science and animal behaviour in the animal and veterinary science world as well. So there are lots of different options. And so some of the honours coordinators that we have here today are basically the coordinators for those particular disciplines in each of those 4 areas, main areas. So what would you expect if you're heading into a research pathway? As I said, if you're going to the research pathway, you do quite a substantial research project, and you also may do some coursework that focuses in on your particular study area of interest. So when you think about a research project, normally that means that you're spending a substantial amount of time in a laboratory or in the field with your supervisor and all the team that they have in their particular lab or field. So you will actually it's kind of like working in a workplace to some extent, because you're actually spending some time in that lab. You're working on a project which is yours, and so that's how you develop that independence, but you're being mentored by a supervisor and the team that supervisor usually oversees or is a part of. So those researchers that we're talking about, here at Adelaide University, we're really lucky. We've got a lot of leading researchers in a whole range of different fields. So, they're really passionate about their work. They've got so many questions about their particular area and their particular discipline. And they love to develop new researchers because that means they can answer more questions in that particular discipline. By doing a project which is yours, and that you own and you have ownership of, it allows you to develop your critical analysis skills even further than what you've learnt in your bachelor degree. It also means that because you're delving right into the depths of some particular discipline and being very focused, it also means that you will probably learn some research methods that are quite advanced. You might use equipment, for example, which you would not have necessarily used during your undergraduate, but are going to help you answer a particular question that you're going to be asking during your research project. So it's very independent learning. You're kind of the person, I like to think of it as you're the person who's going to be driving the car. You're going to be kind of making some directions. You're going to dictate how fast it goes, how much you get done, how far you travel in that car. But your supervisor is going to be there right next door to you, telling you which direction to go, turn left, turn right, do whatever it might be, and helping you in that process. So it is independent learning. The other thing that it allows you to do is to develop your communication skills. You have to write a thesis. So it might be a manuscript, it might be another format, it depends upon the discipline. But that's a really important skill to have, particularly as you head out into the workforce. It's usually something that our employers are definitely looking for. So it's going to allow you to develop skills that better prepare you for your particular chosen discipline. So it's a contextual learning because it's within your research area. For the professional pathway, which is our other pathway, this can be in science communication, science education, science innovation, science policy, or project management. And what you can expect in the professional pathway is really a lot more time spent on the development of those professional skills. There is, as I say, that 9-unit smaller research project, but it's very much something to do with one of those areas that I've just mentioned. Again, it will consolidate your skills in critical thinking, communication, problem solving, and interpersonal skills. But it also provides an opportunity to spend a bit of time with industry, either through projects or in internships. And we know that in 2022, we're likely to have some opportunities to have some internships or some more opportunities for internships as well. So you're really going to be building your broader professional skills base that might be highly sought after. So if you're sort of thinking that the lab is not a place for you, or the field, if you're thinking geology or environment, then consider the professional pathway instead. Our coordinator for the professional pathway is also online today too. So in terms of honours, I've just told you about what honours entails, but there are also a whole range of scholarships that are available. And they range from 2,000 all the way up to 27,000, and they are actually internal or external. And so the website that's there actually provides all of the details for all of those different scholarships. So the scholarships are, make sure that you play into those scholarships, really important to use those to help you. Because as I say, honours is a year where you will spend a lot of time focused on a particular area, and often it's treated kind of like a job because you're kind of going in and you're doing that work on a daily basis with your supervisor and on your particular project. So the scholarships help you to manage time as well. So that's an introduction to what honours is about. Next, what I would like to do is to invite Nicole Foster to talk to you. So Nicole has done her honours and PhD. She's basically finished her PhD only just recently in 2020, and she was actually awarded what's called the KP Barley Prize for Outstanding Academic Achievement in Ag or Natural Resource Sciences. And she was doing some novel DNA technologies in the environment, was basically the very simple way of putting what she did. But she was basically looking at reconstructing how plant communities have changed over time. So with that, I'd like to invite Nicole to tell us a little bit about honours and what honours meant for her, and any advice that she might have for the students that are online today. Thank you, Nicole.
Thanks, Amanda. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining today. So yeah, I completed honours in 2016 after doing a Bachelor of Science Advanced. My honours project was quite unique. I went to White Island in New Zealand and stayed there for 8 weeks and did some diving at the carbon dioxide vents that were there. So it was quite exciting for me. And I guess for honours in general, it's a challenging year, but in a good way. It really tests your ability to do science because you're basically running a project yourself. Yes, you have a lot of help from your supervisors, but it is up to you to get the work done and to manage how it goes and to organise yourself. I think, to be honest, I learned more in that 1 year in honours than I learned in my entire undergrad. Because it's just the experiences that you have and how short a year it is. It means you really need to be focused. I would recommend it in terms of the skills that you develop, the sort of critical thinking, independent learning, they're all really important for the workforce. Advice I'd have is be very, think hard about who you choose to be your supervisor. Make sure you pick a group. It's not just necessarily all about the project, it's also about who you're working with. Do they have a supportive group? Is there a co-supervisor or other early career researchers that you can turn to? Because academics get very busy, and if you have one academic and they're your only source of support and they're away or they go do something or they're unavailable, then you get a bit stuck. So I just say be very careful about who you pick and what group you do it with. And it's not necessarily, it doesn't have to be your absolute be all end all favorite project, something you're interested in, but also something that's going to be finished on time and going to give you the skills you need and the experience you need for either going into research or going to a job. Yeah, that's about all I have to say. I mean, the honours basically really set me up for a PhD. I learned so much, but I also think if you're not planning on going into research and you want to go into the workforce, it's a good year to really hone your skills, get experience, and it's an extra thing that you can sort of say you've done. So yeah.
Thank you, Nicole. Much appreciated. Nicole, I would, we will have an opportunity later on in the session for the students to also ask you some questions, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
Great, thank you. Hi everyone, we should have everyone back from the breakout rooms now. I hope that you had a good conversation with your with the various coordinators and you learned a bit more about honours. Before we talk about the next steps, I just want to reiterate a couple of things that Nicole said. Nicole mentioned, you know, finding a supervisor and the right group was really important. So if in your conversations and looking at the different projects that are available, you haven't found one that's a great fit, please, by all means, you know, go and explore the university's website in terms of the research profilers, or even if you know of somebody who you want to spend a bit of time with and maybe do the professional pathway, maybe spend some time, go and have a chat to that person. You'll find academics don't bite. We're always happy to have a chat about these types of things. So I would suggest that particular avenue. Now, I will just highlight that we are going to have a Q&A in a moment, and Nicole's just put into the chat the Sciences Projects link, I'll just point out. But in terms of where to from here, in terms of the next steps, review all of the projects on offer at that honours website. And as I say, you might want to make sure you have a chat to your academics. Identify a supervisor, someone who, you know, maybe inspired you during your lectures in your undergraduate, or and I'll just ask if everyone could please mute themselves. Identify that supervisor, go and have a chat to them. See whether or not your interests align, whether the way in which they operate as a supervisor fits you as well. And then you would complete the expression of interest form. Have a look at those scholarships that I mentioned earlier. The other option too is to also reach out to the honours coordinators who you've met today in the different disciplines. Again, that list is available on the Honours website. If you put the expression of interest in, we then assess your application, and if successful, we provide you with further instructions. But I just wanted to highlight a couple of key dates. So the applications, if you're interested for semester 2, the applications expressions of interest are due by the last Friday of semester 1, and by around about the 12th of July, you'll know about whether you have an offer. If you're interested in next year's honours, again, it's by the last Friday of semester 2. So it's always the last Friday of the semester before you're going to start your honours. And then for that one, the first offers will let you know by early in December whether or not you've where you're going to be placed. In terms of the 2 pathways, just a reminder that we have the disciplinary research pathway, and then we also have the professional skills pathway if you're looking for something slightly different or a little smaller. If any of you are interested in earth sciences, we didn't have earth sciences on the call today, but they do have an event on May the 12th at 12 p.m. in the Madigan room. So May the 12th, 12 p.m. Madigan room, if you're interested in that, if you in earth sciences. So I guess this is an opportunity now, if there are some broader questions that anyone wanted to ask, to please ask them. I would just say unmute yourself and we'll answer them. I might stop sharing to allow that to happen a little easier, I think. And then so I can see all of the screen, who's on the screen. So I've done that now. And invite any questions. If you're not comfortable unmuting and yelling out with a question, by all means put it in the chat as well. So we'll leave that. Anybody got any questions?
I've got a question. I wasn't able to find information about whether there's any prerequisites in regards to GPA.
Sorry, who's that?
Yeah, that's me. Just
Yep. I haven't heard the questions. You froze for me.
Rebecca was asking
GPA. Okay, so the minimum GPA. So normally we're looking for a GPA of 5 and above. However, it depends on your supervisor. So sometimes students who don't quite have that GPA will have that conversation with a potential supervisor, and then you know, if you didn't quite make it, but you've obviously shown an interest in that particular area, or you've gone really well in your 3rd year, let's say, then sometimes supervisors will take you on. Hope that answers your question, Rebecca. Okay. Chelsea has a question here. May seem like a strange question, but are there any costs associated with honours? Not a strange question at all, and a very sensible question to ask. So in terms of costs, well, obviously, it's just like if you're doing your undergraduate degree, you obviously are going to have your HECS to have to pay. But in terms of other costs, normally you're sitting within, if you're doing a research pathway, you're sitting within a research lab, and those costs are usually linked to that particular research lab. So the only costs really are what you would normally have if you were doing an undergraduate degree. I hope that answers your question, Chelsea. I think that's what you were looking for. Okay. In terms of, Jasmine's asked a question leading on about the GPA. Is the GPA averaged out over all 3 years, or just the GPA you achieved in 3rd year? Usually it's all 3 years. It's usually over all 3 years, but that's why I say if maybe you didn't do so well in 1st year and 2nd year, it's worth having that conversation with a supervisor, a potential supervisor, because they may still take you on if you've sort of reached that GPA in your 3rd year. definitely. Are there any other questions? I do have a couple of questions that Charlotte Drake sent in earlier that I do have to answer here as well. One of these was about can we contact someone about them being our honours supervisor if we like their research? If so, how would we go about this? As we said before, you know, if you've come across somebody in the university, in the Faculty of Sciences that you would really like them to be an honours supervisor, send them an email, go have a chat to them, you know, and broach that conversation about research. So, you know, how I would do that would be to send them an email, make sure that it's a very well written email with, you know, all the, as if you're writing for a job interview, I would suggest maybe send them your transcript, indicate what your interests are and why you're asking them that particular question. I'm just going to go to the other chat questions we've got here. So honours in research pathway involves coursework as well as a research project. It can do, it depends on the discipline, so there's always a little bit of coursework. It will vary depending upon which discipline you're in, Brittany. Chelsea's got, I meant like there's a cost directly associated with it, like some subjects may fall into band 3 for costs of a particular subject, etc. I might have to take that one on notice, I think, and get back to you, Chelsea, on that. I'm not entirely certain which band these fall into. It will depend upon what your interest is. So we might have to follow up with you via email because that depends on your interest and what particular area you're interested in particular as to which band of student cost it falls into. Okay, sorry, I'm trying to read the chat very quickly here. Is the honours project, does it have to be sourced by the University of Adelaide or by a supervisor inside the university? So you do need to have a University of Adelaide supervisor. However, we do have examples where students might have supervisors who sit, for example, in a state government department or sit in another organisation. But usually that needs to sit with, also have a co-supervisor who's from the University of Adelaide and in the Faculty of Sciences. If you are very specifically interested, for example, in biomedical sciences, then I would suggest having a conversation with Rob Richards about the various supervisors that are available there, because some of them might be involved in SAMRI, and a similar situation with some of our food and nutrition students, and Zhou Zhao would also help with that. However, there's always a co-supervisor of a co-supervisor in the University of Adelaide as well for those that are in the Faculty of Sciences. In terms of the questions, we've had quite a few there. And Brittany, I noticed that you've sort of said about honours in ecology, whether or not it has coursework or not. I'm going to ask maybe Kate Sanders to follow up with you because that's in her area. So we'll follow up with you offline because we have come to 3:30. And there were quite a few questions, so thank you. Really good that you're asking those questions. The recording of this talk will be uploaded to the website that we mentioned before, so I'll just share my screen again. This website here, ua.edu.au/sciences honours. Again, you can email the honours coordinators or else just contact the Sciences Service Hub if you've got any further questions after today, and we'll make sure that we follow up with you. And look, if you know of any of your friends who are thinking about honours, please tell them all about honours and what you've learnt about it as well. And I'm hoping that we see some of you in honours next year. And thank you to the honours coordinators for helping have a chat to our students.